Next is James Kirkpatrick.
Hi, James.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. All right.
Okay. First question. Why are you interested in serving on the city's planning commission? In your response, please include a summary of your relevant education skills and experience, including any past civic involvement.
Sure. My name is James Kirkpatrick. I'm currently serving on the Park Avenue Advisory Committee, and I'm excited about that opportunity of serving there and also possibly serving on the Planning Commission. I think why I want to serve on this is that Emeryville is one of the most unique, dynamic places I've lived so far. And I see that the City Council, as well as the other bodies that make up the City of Emeryville municipality, actually care about the city, but also can implement their interests and measures actually into tangible kind of results. I'm an architect. I've practiced for 10 years. I spent the first 5 years in New York working for Raphael Vignoli Architects. I have a bachelor's and a master's, one from Auburn, one from UC Berkeley. I did my thesis at UC Berkeley and based it on the possibility of implementing a wind power generation off the Ashby Spit and possible development. From that point is really where I became so excited about Emeryville. Currently I live in the Bessler building, and I've been drawn by that from the places I've lived in New York and had most of that unique kind of quality of work and industry, just like my old neighborhood of Red Hook. So what other experience? I also worked for Edmondsley Architect, and we were a runner-up in the Emeryville Center of the Arts competition, and I can speak with that more.
Second question. What do you see as the role of a planning commissioner?
As defined in the general plan and other documents, so the role of the planning commission or planning commissioner is to review master use permits, variance, and conditional use permits. Working in architecture, I understand these are very powerful things and shouldn't be taken lightly because their impact can last for several years, indefinitely. Also, I understand that as a planning commissioner, you would look at initiatives and conduct research regarding the problems with the city as it's stated in the bylaws. I see it as an opportunity for a citizen to evaluate the city and to actually be able to have a singular voice that represents their community and against often larger entities.
Describe your knowledge of the city's general plan and any other major planning documents that have been adopted by the City Council in the past 2 years.
Adoption in the past 2 years. I'm from working with the Emeryville Center of the Arts. We researched heavily the Parks and Greenways initiatives, as well as the city master plan and the general plan. I think from those, what's interesting is kind of the diversity in the city between industry, commercial, and residential, and an even pairing of those, which I think looking at the master plan and how there's places for improvement and places that are sustainable right now, the master plans are kind of trying to keep that diversity of kind of industry within the area, which I think is actually very unique. When you look at places such as Oakland or Berkeley, there's been trade-offs in there where they're looking to add industry, and I think Emeryville has a really nice mix of those things going forward, and the master plan keeps that.
Give one example of a recent economic development or housing project in Emeryville that exemplifies your point of view regarding design, community benefit, and/or community process, and explain why.
I think the greenways is one of a great implementation, especially in Emeryville, where the density and adding to the density of both residential and kind of commercial pieces, looking to provide quality spaces to move through the city other than using a vehicle, kind of pays kind of dividends on the economy of space that they hold. One of my favorite spaces is the Greenway, kind of from Doyle up to through Berkeley Bowl, and I think that also exemplifies some of the great step-down kind of medium density residential units, both at like the Glass House development, which is a bit older, but these townhouses that walk out onto a pedestrian's path. So I think those are kind of bold ideas, and a lot of times maybe would get overlooked, but just quality spaces and a quality of moving through the city.
Mayor Breitman.
Okay, Council.
sorry.
Any questions on this side? Jack?
Well, this is going to be shocking, but I have a question about family-friendly amenities in the built
Really?
environment.
Sure.
It's shocking,
Yeah.
isn't it? So if you could just tell me how maybe there's a development that you feel supports family-friendly amenities or housing or something else in the built environment, or maybe you have suggestions about such things.
Sure. I think one, looking at housing, medium density housing that has the ability for 2 and 3 bedroom units that actually can accommodate those, as opposed to 1 bedrooms and studios. But I think what family friendly is, one, I think we're making great advances in having a new Emeryville school and development that will bring families in. But I also think what families are looking for, or younger families, are looking for activity. And I think Emeryville is something where you can facilitate an active lifestyle. I grew up in Clearwater, Florida, and I'm very familiar with a coastal kind of quality of life, and that's something that I find Emeryville utilizes. Its compact space grows out into the water. There's a lot of activity between being on shore, running down the Bay Trail, and just being engaged in an environment that I think, you could look at places like Kensington that back up into a national forest, and I think we have a nature here that is comparable.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about density, and you've
Sure.
already spoken a little bit about the medium density on the Greenway that
Yeah.
you appreciate, but how are we going to accommodate the growth that we're expected to have over the next 20 years in a way that is palatable to the community?
Yeah, the general plan is it's a pretty big number. And working when I was at the CED, I worked with Renee Chow, looking at developments in Shanghai and seeing how they do it, and the idea, and it's the idea of moving away from hutongs and going into kind of tower living. I think Emeryville has successfully kind of gone vertical in a few cases. I know there, with the Sherman-Williams development, there's looking at a tower there, and along the train, along the rail line, the general plan shows a high tower, a high-rise verticality there, which I think's the best way to kind of put property at its greatest value, is to get above that and to have views out while not throwing long shadows over the single-family residences on the other side of Doyle. So I think that's very interesting. Also, in the general plan, there's a lot of looking at community centers beyond the regional area, and Emeryville breaks down very well and has kind of used its natural barriers of the highways and the rail line to keep regional development kind of buffered from the neighborhoods on the other side in Hollis. So it's interesting so far, and I think maybe in the variances, seeing how there's the idea of planned places for community, and then you can see how they've started to evolve, and kind of particularly around the Powell Hollis area now seems like more of a community space, which is amazing at the terminus of the Greenway, and maybe not as much in the general plan. So I think what's great is the City Council can look at that and adapt to the idea of putting more initiative into building places where community is happening organically. Sorry, that wasn't your question.
No, actually.
Sure.
Thank you.
Questions on this side?
I don't.
So just tell me about the Bessler Building. 28 years ago, I started a business in the Bessler Building. Is it still kind of mixed-use building?
It is. It is. There's an engineering firm that's moved into that really nice spot on the ground floor. It reminds me a lot. I used to live in the Monarch luggage factory in Brooklyn and Red Hook, and I think my view here is even better. There's still my neighbor runs a sound studio. There's also a series of artists and a lot of people that do a lot of interesting things.
It was a great building.
It's fantastic.
So it's-
Yeah, and I really love the history in all the lobbies. I think that makes me want to go to work every day to see what, amazing inventions were developed in that space.
And I was there in the '89 earthquake. That was quite interesting, too. So,
I'd like to talk to you about that.
so Karen, back to you.
You have a minute for closing remarks.
Anyway, thank you so much for opening this to the public and allowing citizens of Emeryville to come here and participate in government. From the interactions that I've had with this council and being in this area, it reminds me a lot of how Emeryville is not only a city, but it's also a neighborhood, and that's something that's very unique and really something I want to be a part of.
Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
And thank you for coming out tonight and sitting through this.
Next.